Welcome in, everybody. It's Chris Landry for this week's edition of Scout's Eye on College Football. It's Monday. It's 4 p.m. It's actually 4:05. So it's Scout's Eye on College Football as we wrap up the weekend of college football, and we really get into the minutia of what's taking place, where we are now. But more importantly, we like to reserve this time for you to get in touch with us. How do you do that? Well, very simply. If you're listening to this as a podcast form, we appreciate it. You can join us live and participate and ask interactive questions. Join me live by going to LandryFootball.com. Click follow Chris on Twitch, and you can join us right here. Questions about anything college football. There's a lot of people that are happy. Well, excuse me. There are a few people that are happy. Most people are unhappy at this point. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts about your team, your questions. Where do you think this is going? 2 hours. I've got right here, got the national look at college football. And then next hour, we'll hook up with Dan Matthews. I'm going to do SEC football and beyond as we always do this time. So a lot to get to today. See, 2X Scoops has joined us. Good afternoon to you, my friend. Hope all is well. I don't know yet. I haven't got a read yet on what your favorite team is. So maybe you don't have one. I don't know in college. But hope your team did well. I can tell you, again, a couple of things I want to get out of the way as we always like to do. Remind you to sign up for twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football. Click the heart button, the like button. And then that really helps us for all the analytics and all that. Really, really helps us as we try to grow this. Also, want to encourage you to get a little bit more light here. The old eyes are getting to me. And also encourage you to sign up for the Landry Football Podcast channel, part of the great folks at Dickey Broadcasting. So we're going to answer all the questions and kind of integrate them through the show here. Maybe a little bit more. Although, pardon me if I'm on a train of thought, I may get to it and then jump into your questions. But I see crunch time. Rock 2X Scoops. So we'll get to all of you there. But there's no question that as you look at the landscape of college football, it is nothing unique to say that Alabama and Georgia are the two best teams in college football. And there is a distinct gap. I think that's a narrative that's being expressed out there. I can tell you that the film room says absolutely that. In fact, I'll take it another step as we're here live doing the show on October 4th. You hear the show dropped on the 5th. I think there is such a huge gap. See, normally I say we'll see who else can maybe get to that level by season's end. There is nobody that is within range to catch these two teams. There's nobody even close. The only hope for some sort of parity outside of those two teams is amongst themselves, or if these two teams take a major, major catastrophic, and I'm talking football sense, dive from an injury standpoint that could cause a lot of problems. Those are the things that would have to happen. I think, as I said, there's a lot of good teams. I think there are good teams out there. And if it wouldn't be for Alabama and Georgia, it'd be pretty competitive and be really fun. It's just not, everybody's flawed. And so I look at them, and for those of you that have listened to this show, said, man, I think Oregon's a good team, but they're not special. They can't really score in the passing game, and I think they're vulnerable. I didn't know that they would lose to Stanford, but I thought there was a pretty decent chance. And those of you that kind of follow us on Landry Football and study what we do, it was there. I think we're going to see two good teams this week in Iowa and Penn State, and they're two good teams. That's what they are. And it may have something to say, certainly, about their standings in the Big Ten, but we're not talking about teams that are really a threat inside the national playoffs up against Georgia or Alabama. We're going to see Oklahoma, Texas, which I think has a chance to be better than maybe any of us thought at the beginning of the year. Neither one of them are in that caliber. Ohio State's got talent and, look, getting better, but not where they are. For example, by comparison, they're not like down and out like Clemson is down and out from an upper tier, standpoint. They're not that, but they're not in that category. You can say, why is it? Well, I think you're seeing a generational type defense in Georgia. That's just, their front is outstanding. Alabama's defense is very good. And one of the things that we discussed is the Alabama game. I want to get into that for a second. How they played Ole Miss. Again, we discussed, what do you have to do against Ole Miss if you're Alabama? You've got to play offensively, complementary ball, play with balance, play with a run game, and ball control. It's exactly what they did. Defensively, phenomenal job of playing assignment football. The one thing, what do? People react. People overreact to what they see because that's all they see is the result, the highlights. They watch the game on TV. Well, I saw so-and-so against so-and-so. They weren't very good, and this other team is ranked even better. It's going to be worse. Isn't that what people thought? Isn't that a fair question about, well, what's Alabama going to do against Ole Miss? We saw what happened against Florida. And I talked about, well, these are the type of teams that give Alabama's defense some trouble. Quarterback in the run game, the quick tempo, a lot of eye candy. Don't get caught into that. So we talked about what Alabama needed to do. The one thing, I say it all the time, and I think just it goes poof. People say Landry's just on his stick again. You never stay the same. You either get better or get worse. And one of the things you see is you may be able to catch Saban. You may be able to do something. But if you come back again with that, he'll be prepared. Last year's Ole Miss game, and a different style, but some different challenges to gap integrity that Florida produced against Alabama's defense, got Alabama ready. It's hard when he's got a chance to fix it. He knows how to fix it. He's got the staff to fix it, and he's focused on it. And look, I think that they were immaculately prepared, and all the things we talked about that they needed to do, they did. And then some. And that game, as you watched it out there, it wasn't even close to what the final score was. So it was a very impressive performance. For Georgia, the thing we discussed is, okay, this Arkansas team is physical. It'll cause some challenges for Georgia. Boy, they met that challenge big time. This is a dominant defense. Defensive front, Arkansas couldn't get anything done against them. Very impressive. Offensively, run the football. As much as I've talked about and as much as I've been impressed with Barry Odom and the job he's done at Arkansas, boy, they're built, obviously, to drop 8, and I'm not quite sure what they were doing there. I mean, I know they like to play their 3-man front, but I'm surprised they weren't a little bit quicker trying to fill against the run. You don't give Georgia a chance to run because that's what Kirby wants to do, and that's what he's going to do, by God. And they did it. They did it big time. They had tons of success, and it made it easy for them. Ole Miss made it easy for Alabama to run the football. Part of that, that 3-2 look that Ole Miss ran anyway, I'm not quite sure what they were doing there. That wasn't a good fit. I am interested in what Georgia does offensively going forward. And I want to talk a little bit about, because people have asked me, so I'll address it. We're going to find this out later. I'm to piggyback off what I said at the beginning. I think there's every bit of a chance that we're going to see. Not only there's a chance, I will tell you, I would be shocked if Alabama and Georgia are not playing for the national championship. It would have to be something weird to happen. It's just, they're going to play in the SEC championship game. One of them's going to lose, and they're going to play again, and they're both going to make the playoffs. And I think they're going to be. I would think they're going to be the opposite ends. If I don't think there's any way they put them in the semifinals. And then they're going to play again. That's how I see it. Now, if circumstances changes to make my opinion change, I'll sit here and say it, but I don't see it now. But the one thing that separates is I just don't know where Georgia's going to be at their quarterback position. JT Daniels is not healthy. They're managing his reps. They're clearly not going to develop any of the young quarterbacks. And Stetson Bennett is going to be fine in any game that Georgia plays all year long. There will be no threat of anybody beating him, in my opinion. He's going to protect the football, not make mistakes, and they're going to dominate everywhere else, except when it comes to Alabama. Would give Alabama the edge over Georgia just on the mere fact that both defenses are great. Georgia's a little bit better with their front. Alabama's a little bit better in coverage. Georgia's coverage success comes with their front pressure, the ability to create longer third downs, for example. Offensively, they're both very good, but Alabama they can beat you with tight ends. They've still got good receivers. Maybe not as dynamic at receiver as they've been before, but that's just because of how great they've been. They're still dynamic. They're still good. They can still throw it. And, oh, by the way, they can run the football. And they're going to want to throw the football, and they've got a quarterback that's really good. And the consistency and the stability at quarterback is what maybe separates Alabama from Georgia. We'll see if that changes through the course of the year. I don't know, and I don't really care to, split hairs on who's the best on two teams that are on a collision course, maybe twice the rest of the year. We'll see it, but that's kind of how I see it. Those are some thoughts initially. Let's get to, I want to integrate some of the stuff. 2X Scoop says, my heart is broken over the Notre Dame loss to Cincinnati. The offensive line is struggling to protect the quarterback and get the running game going. You're correct. Notre Dame is struggling up front in the offensive line. Thought they hung in there well enough. I think Cincinnati's a good team. I throw Cincinnati in the mix of just a bunch of teams. And look, I can't tell you. Maybe the biggest question in college football is who's the other two that you get into the four? Does Cincinnati look like one of the four best teams in the country? No. Even with all the others, I wouldn't rank them. If I was ranking 3 through 15, they wouldn't be one of the top 2 or 3 starting at 3. But they might have a shot. Rock Westfall says, what is the specific reason for Whiskey's poor line play? Recruiting, coaching, the highest honor in the state for a kid to play on the line. Decades of excellence, and now helpless. Why? Well, Rock, it's a bad year. The talent's not as good. Why is that? Well, the development, the recruiting, it happens at times. I know there's been a consistency of you just plug it in every year and it's going to be the same. It's not. That's why what Alabama's doing at their level is so impressive because consistency is the key. And Wisconsin has been so consistent. And when they are not 1 year, it's like all hell breaks loose. The Reasoners are not as talented. They don't have guys that are really that talented. And I think they've got some inexperience in some cases. And I also think they don't have good running backs, the elite type running backs. So when you, as I've explained last week, when you are a team is built around the running game and offensive line play, when that's not good, then you got nothing to go with. I know you've mentioned a couple of times, well, maybe they should get a more of a, game manager quarterback. That doesn't have anything to do with their running game. The turnovers are killing them. The defense is keeping them in the game. The turnovers are killing them because they can't get anything out of the running game. They're having to take chances that are ultimately going to end up in turnovers. It's combination both. Without protection, doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Yeah. Crunch time. Good afternoon, Coach. Ole Miss and Arkansas chose to play Alabama and Georgia with a light box. Alabama's 50 rushes. Look at that. 50 rushes, 210 yards, 4 touchdowns. Georgia 56 to 10, 273 and 3 touchdowns, ground and pound. Yes, sir. Or as Coach Pitt would say, yes, sir. Yes. People will ask, and people have asked me about that. When you're built a certain way and you play a certain way, that's going to work for you in many of the games that you play. People say, well, it's not just that they played 3 down linemen. It's that they don't have the personnel to play as many 4 down looks. Part of what they played 3 down linemen, but they brought their linebackers down. They're not built. They're built to defend a certain way. So they don't have the numbers to be able to play alternative ways. So they're going to bait you into some, throwing it as much as you can. And against elite level teams, they don't match up. It's not the scheme. Okay. They could have put 11 guys at the line of scrimmage. I'm exaggerating. If you put 4 guys, 5 guys in there, you reduce the front and cover both the tackles and guards. They don't have the personnel to do it and be effective. And so that would have been easy prey for Alabama to throw the football. Alabama was more than willing to take those numbers and flip them the other way and throw the football. Run against a light box, throw against a loaded box. Pick your poison. I get it. That's the focus. That's how Ole Miss plays. That's the only way they feel they can be successful. I think to some degree Arkansas feels the same way, and that's why they're not as good. Rock says, Jimbo is in year 4, paid a king's ransom, and with an unlimited budget that succeeded. I find A&M an excusable wannabe. Perhaps it's just the program itself. Rock, it's like everybody else. Because you're not paying them a king's ransom because you just pay them a king's ransom. Why? Why did they give them an extension 2 weeks ago? Because LSU was ready to hire her or going to likely hire her or the threat of hiring. It doesn't matter if you pay a guy $900,000 a year, $9 million, or $19 million or $90 million. It's not going to make you better or worse. If you haven't watched A&M and haven't seen their ability to get better and better and better, last year they're a really good team, and the program is in really good shape. Okay, this is not a good year. They've not done a very good job. It's the same thing. They're frustrated with Dan Mullen in Florida. They're aggravated with Kirby Smart at Georgia because he hadn't won it all. Who does it? They're obviously frustrated with Dabo Swinney at Clemson. You're a Wisconsin fan. You're frustrated because Wisconsin's not what they normally are. People have criticized Kurt Ferentz because every year he's not as good as they are like they are this year. Hey, welcome to college football. Nobody does it at the same level of consistency. Only Alabama's done that. What do you want me to tell you? It's not because Jimbo's not working hard. He's not overpaid. They went and got him from Florida State. Guy's an outstanding coach. Built a national championship. Nick Saban thinks he's the best offensive play caller he's ever had. Okay? They're not doing a very good job. They've got young quarterback. Offensive line's bad. Speaking of offensive lines, it's not a good year. Does it make him not worth it? What do you do? Is it the program? That's BS. Clemson couldn't win either. Bobby Bowden couldn't win. Tom Osborne could never win a big one. You're looking at all the things that people in the media talk about that have nothing to do with anything. Got resources? Yeah. And what is he doing? He's recruiting well. He's coached very well. His program is relevant. Oh, but because somebody said they should be number 2 in the West, it doesn't make you number 2. You got to bring it. And now we're seeing the difficulty. It's not a very good team this year. They're struggling. They're not able to score enough points. Defensively, they're starting to take chances and make mistakes. They're not as good as a lot of people thought. I thought A&M would be about an 8-3 team this year. A 9-3 team this year, excuse me. Think they're going to probably be a 4-loss team this year. I mean, I didn't expect them to lose to Mississippi State. Arkansas, I didn't see them losing that game here either in the summer, but I certainly saw that coming when they played them, and I think they're going to A&M. They're going to get hammered. They're going to get hammered by Alabama. Well, they got hammered by Alabama last year. What do you So everybody's overpaid and everybody sucks other than Alabama. That's the narrative that people want to have. Rock says, improving Nebraska should have a quarterback edge, and a blue offense won't light up the black shirt. Saturday night ABC primetime crowd. Trap spot for Michigan after revenge at Whiskey. I don't know. I don't think Nebraska's I think Michigan is a good team. I don't think they're a great team. It could be. It could be, Rock. I don't think Michigan could play poorly and win a game like this. I don't think they just can win on talent. But I'm going to tell you, Aiden Hutchinson, I put it in my notebook today, the game balls. Aiden Hutchinson is playing as good as anybody in college football. That defense is for real. It's really, really good. I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if they pulled it off. 2X Scoops, even with Georgia playing so well, it still seemed like the Alabama firepower is too much for any team to stop. We'll see. We'll see, 2X. Look, Alabama, I get this a lot. The Georgia folks, when are we going to get respect? When you earn it. Alabama's earned the benefit of the doubt. They have beaten Georgia in the past. It does not mean they're going to beat them this year. It doesn't have anything to do with who's going to win the game. But it has a lot to do with the perception. A lot to do with the perception. Let's get the rich coach says, what was the problem with the Gators committing 14 penalties? 8 false starts. Can you explain what led to the Gators deciding to go to halftime despite having 1:59 left in the second quarter? Look, Rich, let's go big picture on Florida, because I think that's something I was going to get to anyway. We've seen this before. We had the Missouri loss. We had last year's collapse, the not ready for the Florida game. This is a pattern now. Sloppy teams. Oh, the highlight of the season, I guess, is going to be the close loss to Alabama. I do think I have seen enough evidence that Dan is a very good play caller and very good with quarterbacks. However, There are times where that is not the case. And I have a hard time putting my finger on, is it a lack of focus, a lack of energy, a lack of attention to details? Because you just mentioned it. All the turnovers and mistakes. Poor job. And, there's a lot of ego there. And right now they are hopping mad. I mean, they are about as pissed off as anybody in Florida right now. Just doing shows. I mean, they had enough of this guy. Look, it's October 4th. I tweeted out on Saturday. We just hit October, and Florida is eliminated from the East. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. I mean, there's technically not, of course. Georgia ain't losing 2 games. You could upset Georgia, and all that's going to do is upset Georgia. It ain't going to do anything for you. You ain't winning the East. And it's not about Kentucky. Kentucky, I'm telling you, still not playing good on offense. I love the Kentucky story. I love Mark Stoops. I love the defense. I'm really disappointed in how they're playing on offense. I thought early on there was some signs this offense is going to be really good. This Kentucky team is going to get killed by Georgia unless they figure out some things offensively. And they're making way too many mistakes. I thought that Florida-Kentucky game was one of the worst executed games. Florida, Kentucky, and the officials. God awful. But for Florida, to your point, look, it is fair at this point to question whether A, Dan can recruit at a championship level, and B, can he coach at a championship level from a consistency standpoint? The theme is we got a lot of people that are unhappy. Nick Saban not only gets a lot of people fired, but everyone compares their guy to Nick Saban, and it's in a comparison that's going to only get you in trouble because it's just there's no comparison. Look, Georgia's been consistently good, and Kirby hasn't won a title, so people don't think he's a good. Ohio State's having a down year. Ryan Day's done a phenomenal job in the short time he's been there, but not quite good. Dabo's getting a lot of heat. Everybody, no one, as I said, you can go through whoever they are, whatever their standard is, their expectation level is. Sometimes Jimbo's getting a ton of heat. I get it. Like Rock brought up some great points. I get it. He's right in that he's not getting it done. But the alternative is what? Jimbo Fisher is not as good as Nick Saban. Breaking news. You needed me to tell you that? It's just, there are a lot of things. And I can't sit here and tell you if you're Texas A&M or Florida that either one of those guys are going to get you a national championship. In fact, I can create a scenario where it might happen. Ed Orgeron won 2 years ago. I don't think Ed Orgeron's a tenth of a coach of those two guys, but it happened, so it can happen. But do I trust those guys necessarily to do it against who they have to go through right now? No, I don't trust anybody. I mean, right now, the only program that looks close to Alabama is Georgia, and they still haven't gotten it done against them. So I get the frustration. But to me, like I would say, let's take A&M in Florida because I like to do some comparisons. We're seeing a pattern here with Dan. We're not seeing this pattern with Jimbo. Jimbo won a national title at Florida State, and I get, but it was all Jameis Winston. It was all, okay, I got it. He's built something really good. He is recruiting better than, say, Dan Mullen is, and he's got a tougher path. This is not good to lose to Mississippi State and Arkansas. I think everyone expected them to lose to Alabama. I think the A&M fan base wanted to be unbeaten going into this game, and it's a 2-loss team now going into Alabama. and to play Alabama better. They'd love to tell you they were going to win. We're going to do it. I think they knew that was not going to happen. But it is fair. It is fair to question, and we can criticize. But it's up and down. Like people, and people are so whatever happened 2 days ago thought process. Ed Orgeron is in a world of hurt right now. Mike Leach is a genius because they beat Jimbo Fisher, who's making $9 million a year. You remember a week ago, that same Mike Leach got handed by Ed Orgeron in LSU? So the village idiot is now a genius again. That's the typical hysterical fans. This guy's overrated. He's paid too much. He's not this. Then don't pay him that much. Don't pay him. Get somebody else to coach. You get paid relative to what somebody's willing to pay and what the other options are. What you get paid doesn't guarantee you a damn thing. Okay? So I know the expectations are great, but because you pay a guy $9 million a year doesn't mean you're going to win a national championship. I don't know if they'll ever win one there. Not because there's some hex on A&M that you can't win it, just because it's tough to win it. It's tough. I've been there. It's tough to win it. Spartan Martin, is Kentucky now a front runner for the playoffs? Spartan Martin. I'm assuming that's a joke. I think Kentucky is a below average offense right now that's making a bunch of mistakes. That game said more about Florida. No, Kentucky's not. Kentucky's not a threat in the SEC East. That's going to be a bloodletting, I would think, Georgia against Kentucky. Are there any red flags you see with Jimbo's programs? Do you think they're headed in the right direction at a slow? I think I don't see any red flags. They're just not that good this year. They're overrated this year. Again, the media puts out, well, they're going to win the West or they're going to be second in the West. I still think that the program is in really good shape. But certainly fixing the offensive line, the mixing of the youth guys and the quarterback is a bad mix. That's the problem. No, I still think the program's in really good shape. Spartan Martin says, I like Mullen a lot, but the majority of the Gator fan base is out on him. Do you think he's the guy for Florida? Depends on what you want. My concern with Dan is I think Dan is so arrogant that he doesn't see his flaws. Maybe he does, and he's just too prideful to admit it. But if he doesn't recruit at the same level as Georgia, I've said this all along, you're not going to beat Georgia. And I'm talking about not winning last year. I'm talking about being the team to beat in the East. Georgia's the program in the East. You're chasing Georgia. Okay. When you lose to Kentucky, that's a next level unacceptable. Like, again, A&M, okay, we lost against Arkansas. We're not going to beat Alabama, but we're going to lose Mississippi State too? Well, where's the program headed? To hell in a handbasket? Look, I think to the A&M question, if we're seeing 2 more years of the same thing out of Jimbo, then I think that all this hysteria is fair game. Right now, I think it's a 1-year thing, and we'll see. With Florida, I'm a little bit more concerned because I don't see Dan recruiting at that level, and I see the inconsistencies that occurred last year. It's, so I don't – look, the guy for Florida, they expect to win the East. And I'm sure if they were alternating years with Georgia, it would be frustrating. But I think they realize that you're not going to be winning the East, that you're going to be chasing Georgia. Maybe not to the degree that everybody's chasing Alabama, but kind of similarly. And that's just not going to be good enough for Florida fans. And I don't know that I can, with a lot of confidence, tell you that he's going to get them there. I don't. with Chet King joining us. I appreciate it. What are your thoughts on Oklahoma win and advance, or do they have serious issues of concern? That's a team that's I thought they got better this past week. Thought the offense will get a little bit better. I think I think this game's going to be real interesting against Texas. I think this will provide some challenges. There's no question about it. Look, I think the ACC is out of it playoff wise. I think the Pac-12's out of it because I don't think Oregon's lost their one and only game, and I don't think the loss to Stanford, winning the rest of them, gets them in. Although somebody's getting in that doesn't look real good. Look, there's, I think Oklahoma's still in it, but they don't look like a team. Look, there's only two teams that look playoff caliber, and I'm not talking about that the fact that Georgia and Alabama, you can be Georgia and Alabama and be elite level, and then you could have some really good teams that look playoff caliber. What I'm saying is you got two teams that are elite level, and I don't think you have, I mean, everybody else looks like they're borderline, not playoff caliber, because we don't have a typical look at Clemson or Ohio State or Oklahoma. We're looking at a knockoff version of those, or in the case of Clemson, not even close to that. And then other people that are going to make their mark as a result of those teams struggling. And I just don't think that's going to be good enough. Mullen is the king of looking ahead in the big games of the season. Well, maybe it's part of it. I don't know. Upsetting Georgia still makes me happy. Yeah, but you're not going to beat Georgia this year. What is your assessment of Randy Shannon as a coach? I don't think, Randy was – I think he was a good assistant. A good recruiter, nothing much. Spartan Martin says, should Miami move on from Diaz? Yeah, if they have the money to pay it. In Jimbo's defense, he recruited Winston. That's the idea last time I checked. Yeah, Winston you're talking about. Yeah, he recruited him and he coached him. Look at all the quarterbacks that he has and tell me a quarterback that he hadn't gotten better. He's gotten the most out of anybody that he's had. Now, some of those people weren't real good. Some of them were good. Kellen Mond is average as dirt. And he made that guy into an NFL player, and he was really good. These quarterbacks that he has are really good, but they're very young. So, again, the typical outside, well, it's easy. They almost made the playoffs last year, so therefore it's only going to get better next year. No. You don't pick up where you left off last year. You start over. And you got a young offensive line and a young quarterback. That's a bad combination. So they're not as good this year. Do it for 3 years in a row, then you got a problem. You see inconsistencies, you got a problem. 1 year, I don't think so. Perhaps we see why Mullen looked for an NFL life raft last winter. Perhaps he knows something. Look, no, let me address that. You're hit on something. Because I was involved in it. Dan Mullen asked to be interviewed by the Jets. He didn't get it. He got a Zoom interview. Most of the interviews were Zoom last year. And the Jets interviewed like 3 or 4 people face-to-face. He wasn't one of them. This is part of it. This is part of the issue with Dan that concerns me. He's more interested in his image, his pride. Look, he got asked a question that was uncomfortable. I think it's a trap question. Kind of an ugly question by the media, but that's the coach coming out of me. Were you out coach? Well, it's well, what the hell do you say? Yeah, I got out coach. I mean, that's what you should say. But Dan gave a stupid answer. Well, he hemmed and hawed, and his pride, you can see it was just killing him. And he started talking about stats and all that. He got the Jets to interview him, and he purposely had his people put it out in the media to basically say, see, all you Gators and all you people that are talking bad about me, the NFL wants me. It's not that hot commodity that people think. So you're right there. He's looking for that to have some cover. Man, he really is that good. And A lot of time these guys kind of buy time, but as I said, we've talked a lot about what that situation is. Does an on-field performance ever directly translate to recruiting, or do great recruiters recruit great? Look, I think you can sell playing early. I think you can sell the program. I think you can sell the vision, the culture, and that includes winning. That includes what we're trying to do to become winners. I think good recruiters can recruit great, but it certainly helps when you're having success. Big picture, would you rank LSU and Georgia behind Alabama as the SEC programs with the right coach can most easily win at a national championship? Um, I think Georgia, LSU, Florida, um, absolutely would put them in there. The difficulty in anybody in the West is you got to go ahead of Alabama. See, I think the reason why A&M was such a well thought of job is because see at Georgia you haven't won in a while a national title. LSU, you obviously we've seen that happen recently. But what makes the A&M job great in a coach's eyes, see, what a fan thinks doesn't matter, what the media thinks doesn't matter because you're not going to coach. A&M is they've never done it. So it's a great if you don't win it, like Rock says, well, you can't win it at A&M because nobody's ever won it. No, you can win it. You just got to have the right guy. And if you win it, you've done something nobody else has done. If you come in and win it at LSU, well, you've seen a couple of people do it. Some people that look, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron. One's been fired, one is going to get fired eventually, and they've both won a title. And Nick Saban won a title there, and Paul Diesel won a title. Georgia's been since Vince Dooley. I would say yes. I would say LSU, Georgia, Florida, probably in that order. Correcting if I'm wrong, Chris, but didn't Stanford just throw the fade route to win against Oregon? Because I was thinking about the play 2 weeks ago when the conversation first started. Why wouldn't the camera zoom out a little bit so we can see the actual play? That is correct. Yeah, the people talk about the fade route and what a bad it is. Yes, that's exactly what it was, and it's exactly why, if run correctly with the right matchup, and that's why I addressed it. The right matchup, it's one of the best calls you can make. And you hear some people talk about how it's a bad call, and it's an easy throw, and it's one that's going to often end in a catch if you got the right matchup, or interference, which is going to give you a play, particularly in the NFL where you get first down on the one if you're throwing it. Yep, no, it's a point. It's great to hear. I've been hoping Mullen doesn't get an NFL job. Well, I don't know. In other words, Dan Mullen doesn't hold himself accountable. I don't think I'll ever Mullen say he needed to coach better and I was wrong. No, no, he doesn't. He doesn't do that. It's never wrong there. It's never that. You don't really see Mike Leach do that either. It's never them. It's players and it's this and it's that. So, where does that stand now with Ole Miss and Arkansas? Oh man, they got their comeuppance, and they're not very good. They got exposed. Again, you'll be down on Arkansas, be down on Ole Miss. Sure. I, did maybe a closer game be a better representation? Bottom line is they're not as good as the teams that they played, the programs that they played. We'll see what they do the rest. I'm fascinated by Ole Miss Arkansas this week. In fact, I'm not a TV programmer, but I'm probably think that would have been a better primetime matchup than Alabama A&M for CBS at 7 p.m. Although the atmosphere in Kyle Field, they'll still have 100,000. It'll be so at least that'll show well. But the game probably won't be as good. Arkansas Ole Miss is fascinating. It probably tells you who's going to be second in the West, at least right now. We talked about it. Auburn. I said 2 weeks ago, didn't I, that it will tell us a lot about who's the bottom of the West. You had Mississippi State, LSU. You had Auburn, LSU. LSU beats Mississippi State. Auburn beats LSU, and then of course A&M now gets loosed by Mississippi State. I don't know. I miss that. We still don't know a damn thing about who's the bottom of the West. I think that the worst team in the SEC West is not bad, but it's perception, right? If A&M's in the discussion, that's awful because Jimbo's making too much money. So that can't happen. You just there's a rule that if you make a lot of money, your team is just automatically really good. And it doesn't work that way. Mississippi State, again, idiots. Mike Leach, awful idiot last week. Now he's a genius. Folks, if you're going back and forth on whether a guy's an idiot or a genius from one week to the next, you really don't know what the hell you're talking about. If you're that emotional and you can't see things in a big picture and understand that the result is a byproduct of two things, both sides. So what we're seeing is a lot of, are you really impressed with Auburn? Can't be impressed with LSU, but you're impressed with Mississippi State. Well, Mississippi State just got beat by LSU last week. I don't know. No one's awful. No one's really good. And, I think Arkansas and Ole Miss are better than the aforementioned teams. But one of them's going to lose this week, and one of them's going to be really, really bad. Going to be perceived, but how do you handle it? How do you handle it emotionally? How do you come out with it? Everybody's got injuries, but how you deal with the injuries are problems. It's one of the problems that A&M's having right now. You're dealing with guys that are trying to struggle with. A&M's got offensive line injuries. Got the quarterback injury. We don't know how things would have turned out. Hey, life's tough. You got to move forward with it. Iowa Penn State is a fascinating matchup this week. It's going to tell us a lot about the Big Ten. Iowa does the best job schematically of defending the pass. Penn State is very underrated in their secondary. Their corners are big, they're long, they're good. Going to be a lot of fun. We learned a little bit about the Pac-12 South. Arizona State, big win over UCLA. Arizona State, Stanford on Friday night. Late night's going to be a lot of fun. Oklahoma State's playing good ball, folks. No, they're not like threat to go to the playoffs type thing, but they're playing good ball right now. We need to pay attention to them. Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas, Stanford, Arizona State, Arkansas, Ole Miss. LSU, Kentucky is going to be real interesting. Kentucky, this is the type of game. Kentucky, don't let this ruin the big win you had last week. And this is a game Kentucky can lose. If they play offensively like they have, I mean, look, if you play as bad as they're playing offensively, there's no game that's going to be out of the reach. This LSU defense can get after you and play pretty well. Bo Nix had to make a bunch of plays. Now, defensively, LSU ain't going to be able to do. LSU can't run against air, much less against this Kentucky defense that's really good. But don't ruin your season, Kentucky, by losing this game at home. That's going to be real interesting. So we'll see where it is. Get to a couple questions. Blake, yes, Mississippi State has beaten two ranked teams, NC State and A&M, and their two losses could have went either way. Well, the coulda, woulda, shoulda, Blake. NC State and A&M, that whole ranked team stuff, A&M is not a ranked team. They're not a good team, and NC State's mediocre. So, look, they could have gone either way, no question. Look, you could have, but you lost to LSU, who's now basically getting ready to fire. I mean, it's a bunch of mediocrity, really. Can you tell about what you see in the play of Iowa center? Iowa center is the best center in college football. He is so quick off the snap. He's got great use to hands. He plays with heavy hands. He moves his feet very well, plays with really good leverage. What is Oklahoma State doing? I thought they were going to take a major step back with Hubbard leaving, but I was wrong. They got a really good defense. They've done a very good job. Jim Knowles has done a very good job with that defense, and that's allowed them to be really competitive. Um, so, anyway, and Blake says the LSU loss was fair and square. It was, but again, you're losing to a pretty bad LSU team, and so the point is, um, Memphis. Look, you're going to complain about losing because of officials against a Memphis team. That's a team you should have never gotten to that. It's hard to sell Mississippi State as a really good team. You just any more than you can sell LSU's a good team or Auburn's a good team or A&M's a good team. None of those teams are very good. They're not awful, but they're not good. So, hey, folks, I'm going to take a couple of minutes break, and we'll be jumping on SEC football and beyond. So join us over there. More questions, particularly about the SEC, but wherever you want to go, we can take it there over in SEC football and beyond. Check us out at LandryFootball.com for the football season sale. Get all the breakdowns. Got all the SEC game-by-game breakdowns on the Big Ten, closing in on the ACC, getting that done. We're going to have that for you over at LandryFootball.com. So check it out. Talk to you in a couple of minutes, folks.